I'm Scarlett, and I'm back again with one more episode of Sequestered Chef. And after the last show that I did, someone contacted me and asked me if I could talk about gluten. And so I knew a little bit about gluten, just enough to be dangerous probably. So I spent this week researching, and I found out some interesting facts. So hopefully I'll pass them on to you, and you can think about that, and think if you are already eating gluten-free, you might learn some things. And if you haven't been eating gluten-free and you just wondered what all the hype was about, whether it was a real issue or just a fad, hopefully we can talk about those today and help you figure that out. So the first thing I want to talk about is when you hear people say that they're going to go gluten-free or they did go gluten-free, it's probably because they had some weird physical ailments like a bloated stomach, or maybe constipation or diarrhea, or both. They just have stomach ache all the time, cramps, they just don't feel good, they don't have any energy. So they either read or heard that gluten-free was the way to go. And it is for some people. There is a disease called, it's an autoimmune disorder called celiac. And if you have that, you definitely have to stay away from gluten. But you probably already know if you're celiac because you would be under a doctor's care. And only 1 to 2% of the population actually has celiac disease. There may be other people that have gluten sensitivities, but there's really no test for it, and so it's not something that's diagnosed really. It's more of a, well, try to go gluten-free and see, more than a real diagnosis. And what we're going to talk about today is that there could be some other things going on that cause those identical symptoms, and maybe you just hadn't thought about that yet. So I'll go over some of those in just a bit and give you some ideas on how to tweak your diet, as long as you know you really are not celiac. If you are celiac or you think you're celiac, you should go to the doctor, because leaving that untreated can cause a lot of other problems. And you would go to the doctor, get tested, get on a therapeutic diet, probably with a registered dietitian helping you do that, and making sure that you're getting all the nutrients and vitamins and minerals that you need, because you've taken that
Food
out
manufacturers,
of your diet. Which y'all know, if you've watched any videos or come to my classes, you know I'm not a big fan of them sometimes because of their marketing ploys. But they jumped on the gluten-free bandwagon, and you can buy gluten-free all kinds of things. In fact, sometimes you go in the store and you see gluten-free labels on things that you don't even imagine, like a can of tomatoes. And the only thing that it says is in here is tomatoes, some calcium chloride, and some tomato juice. So I guess I did read that sometimes in the manufacturing process that some gluten can get into. So I guess that's their way of telling you that. This is coconut milk. The only thing in there is coconut milk. But the label says gluten-free, so you're sure you might pick that one up over another one just because it says that, and it's naturally gluten-free. Really, gluten is only found in wheat, barley, and rye. So it's not in everything. It's not in fruits and vegetables. It's not in protein. It's just not in most things. But if it's anything related to bread and that's an issue for you, you want to be careful of what kind of bread you are eating. Most of the products, I will say, are bakery related that you would buy in the store, and they probably don't taste very good. As you might have noticed, at least in the beginning, they tasted really bad and nobody would eat it because it tasted like cardboard. Well, to fix that, it has fat, sugar, and salt added in some combination to make it more tasty. So if you're under the impression that gluten-free is healthy or low calorie or low whatever, it probably is not. So like we've always talked about, you need to know how to read the food label. And you need to know how to read the ingredient list to see exactly what you're getting. You might not be getting the gluten, but you might be getting a whole lot more things that you don't want. So you need to be familiar with a food label in case you do decide to start shopping gluten-free. You can make some of the better choices. And about 25 to 35% of the population has put themselves on a gluten-free diet with no diagnosis of celiac. So you can see why the food manufacturers, they've either been successful or maybe they're continuing to provide that product because there's a demand for it. So I'm sure most people at this point have tried something gluten-free. I have done the same thing. And there's a few things that I really like, and there's some things that I just don't like at all. I actually think that's how cauliflower got to be the everything vegetables. People were trying to find gluten-free ways and making pizza crust and things like that. So cauliflower even got a boost in ratings because of the gluten-free. So there have been some studies on gluten to see if it really makes a difference in your diet, whether you lose weight or even lowers the risk of cardiac issues. And some of the research said yes, those two things happen if you go gluten-free. It helps both of those. And then there's more studies that say it doesn't do anything. It doesn't help with weight loss, and it doesn't really help your cardiovascular system. So again, unless you have a specific diagnosis, it's really just a matter of preference. And again, we're going to talk about in a few minutes about some other things that could be causing all those nasty symptoms that you might want to try to just think about and go, oh yeah, I do eat a lot of that. Maybe I should give it a rest for a week and see what happens. So gluten is a protein that has two components in it. One is called glutenin and the other one is gliadin. And gliadin, and I hope I'm pronouncing those correctly, gliadin is the one that causes the problem with digestion. And it joins in with starch in the three products I told you about: wheat, barley, and rye. So what happens is when it gets to the small intestine, it inflames your small intestine. It can't absorb nutrients, causes all the ugliness, the bloating, the cramps, all of that. And so that's why I said if you really think that celiac is an issue for you, you really need to get that checked. So make sure you're getting all the nutrients that your body needs, because again, it'll cause a lot more other serious issues if you're not getting what you need because your body can't digest it and absorb it. So if you're not celiac and you're having these issues, maybe you have IBS, which is totally different, and I don't know that I actually realized that till I did the research. Maybe you're just not getting enough fiber in your diet because you're not eating enough fruits and vegetables. That is a very popular problem. Maybe you're under a lot of chronic stress, and that can cause you to have those same symptoms. Here's one that most people don't know: artificial sweeteners. If you're drinking lots of things, like if you're drinking, just for example, Crystal Light or diet sodas all day long, and you're doing the diet for the sugar-free ones, that could be causing some of your stomach upset. Especially if you're using, and this is more, I see this more in cooked goods than drinks, but xylitol or erythritol, mostly xylitol is the one that I hear the most. That causes a lot of stomach distress. So maybe that's what you're doing in your diet. What about if you have taken a lot of antibiotics? That kills all the bacteria in your gut. And there's about 1 trillion bacteria in your gut. And an antibiotic can wipe all those out. And those bacteria serve good purposes. So when you wipe them all out, of course your insides are gonna not be happy about that. So think about, have you taken some strong antibiotics? Or it doesn't even have to be strong, it can be any antibiotics. So maybe your gut health is just kind of messed up because of that. What about an unbalanced diet? I want to show you, this is what a balanced diet looks like. This is what your plate should look like. It should be mostly vegetables and fruits, and mostly leafy green vegetables. And then some form of protein should be about 1/4 of your plate, and then grains, which is where the gluten is found, and the other 1/4 of your plate. So if your plate doesn't look like this most of the time, that could be a culprit. Maybe you're not eating any of these and you get no fiber again. Maybe you're eating too much protein. Sometimes that'll give you a stomach ache. Or maybe the grains and carbohydrates that you are eating are processed and refined, and that would cause a problem as well. So just turn your brain on and kind of run through that list and see if there's anything, other medications that you may be on. It might be worth you just spending an evening Googling the prescriptions that you're on and see what the side effects are. And it could be one or a combination. You might want to ask your doctor about that and tell them that you're having the issues and you don't think you're celiac, but you want to get to the bottom of the problem. You can buy a lot of the gluten-free everything, but y'all probably already know it's very expensive, and there's less processed options that you could be filling your plate with that are much healthier. You can try rice, corn, soybeans, quinoa, oats. Now, I will tell you a little secret about oats. They are naturally gluten-free, but they are either could be processed in a plant that also processes wheat products, so some of the gluten could get in them. And also they could be grown next to a wheat crop, so it would get contaminated that way. So if gluten really is an issue for you, you have to look for that special kind of box that says certified gluten-free for oatmeal. Otherwise, there shouldn't be a lot of gluten in it, but there is some. Potatoes, beans, flax, nut flours, which I'll show you a couple in a second, seeds, and again, proteins, fruits, and vegetables. None of that has gluten in it. So you could easily stay away from those grains that you think are causing the problem and still have a pretty good diet, as long as you're getting a rounded diet with the other nutrients that you would be missing out on. And I want to show you, this is almond flour. And there are tons of recipes on Pinterest about using almond flour for baking. I don't know, some of them aren't one-to-one trade-offs, so you have to read about that. You can also just buy just an all-purpose. This brand, Bob's Red Meal, he has a lot of those products that are gluten-free, so you might want to go over to the healthy section of Kroger and check that out. This one is oat flour, and you can make oat flour yourself by taking a box of oatmeal, the old-fashioned kind, and running it through your food processor and grinding it yourself. I've even seen garbanzo bean flour in my freezer because I don't use it very much. There's peanut flour, there's ground flax meal that you can put in with some of these others. You wouldn't use that one just by itself. But even if you go on Pinterest, you can even find pages that tell you how to substitute one for another, because some of them are much more dense and some of them you'd need to add more liquids to. But I did put a few recipes out there just for you to try. I think there's a brownie one that's pretty good. So there you go. You know as much about gluten and gluten-free as I do at this point. If you find some gluten-free products that you like, feel free to send me a message at fitterbyfarr@gmail.com. Also, please go like my page on Facebook. It's Fitter by Farr. These videos show up on there, and pass along any other nutrition information that I find throughout my readings. And these videos are also on YouTube, so please go and like my channel, which is Fitter by Farr also. And then I have a Pinterest page, Fitter by Farr, and you can find all the Sequestered Chef pages that I have made while we've been doing these videos for the Wellness Center there, and you can get some good recipes. Please come back next week. It's one of my favorite topics. So as y'all know, our New Year's resolutions didn't work out, and next week will be July 1st. So I'm going to say happy mid-year, and maybe we can get back onto some of the plans that we started out this year that didn't go so well thanks to quarantine. But what we're going to talk about next week is macros, carbs, proteins, and fat, and I'm going to show you the formula of how to calculate your individual caloric needs and the breakdown of those different macros. So please come back with pen and paper next week, and I look forward to teaching you everything I know about that. Talk to you later. Bye.